You know, every so often, a case comes along that just completely captivates everyone. A story that blends total suburban normalcy with an absolutely unthinkable tragedy. Well, that case has now reached its final chapter in court. Erin Patterson, the woman at the very center of the infamous mushroom murders, has officially been sentenced. So let's get into how this whole shocking story finally wrapped up.
It all started, and you'll probably remember this, in the most ordinary setting you can possibly imagine. A simple family meal. A Sunday lunch at a home in Leongatha, Victoria, back on July 29th, 2023.
And what was for dinner? A beef Wellington. But this wasn't just any meal. It was laced with the world's most lethal fungus, the death cap mushroom.
And the fallout, it was just catastrophic. Within days, 3 of the guests, Dawn and Gail Patterson and Heather Wilkinson, were dead, passing away in the hospital from just agonizing liver failure. A 4th guest, Ian Wilkinson, he survived, but he was left fighting for his life.
So that one lunch, that single meal, kicked off this long, complicated road to justice. As you can see here, the investigation eventually led to Patterson's arrest and then an 11-week trial that, honestly, the whole world was watching. And once that guilty verdict came in, only one thing was left: the sentence. So, with the guilty verdict delivered, the big question on everyone's mind was, what's the right punishment for a crime this devastating? Well, the court's answer really came down to a single number. After considering all the evidence, the impact on the families, everything, the judge handed down a single, stark number that would basically define the rest of Erin Patterson's life: 33. Yeah, 33 years. That's the absolute minimum she has to serve before she can even think about parole. She actually received a life sentence, the maximum penalty, for what Justice Christopher Beale called a horrendous series of crimes. But you might be wondering, how did the judge land on the maximum sentence possible? Well, the decision wasn't just about the deaths. It was all about the cold, calculated intent that the prosecution argued was behind them. The judge's decision really hinged on powerful evidence of premeditation. The court found that Patterson didn't just make a mistake, she engaged in this elaborate cover-up. For example, she dumped the food dehydrator that was used to prepare the mushrooms, and then she lied about it. The crucial thing here is that the court saw these moves not as panicked reactions, but as cold, calculated steps to hide her guilt. And really, Justice Beale's final words to Patterson, they just cut right to the heart of it all. This wasn't just a murder. It was this profound betrayal of family trust. And his statement really highlights the one mystery that's still hanging in the air: the motive. Only Erin Patterson truly knows why. Beyond all the legal stuff, the court verdict, there's just this wake of unimaginable grief. The victim impact statements that were read in court, they paint a heartbreaking picture of the real, lasting damage here. These are the words of Ian Wilkinson. He was the sole survivor, but he lost his wife, Heather. In his statement, he talked about this profound loss, and amazingly, even offered Patterson forgiveness for trying to kill him, but he said he had to seek justice for the others. And then there's the impact on her own kids. Erin Patterson's estranged husband, Simon, spoke about how this has just devastated their 2 children. They lost their grandparents, and now they've lost their mother too. And this last one really captures just how chilling this all was. The victim's daughter, Ruth Dubois, pointed out how the kindness and trust of her parents were basically weaponized against them. So what does life in prison actually mean for Erin Patterson? It turns out, because of how famous this case became, it's not exactly a standard situation. For her, life behind bars isn't just about not being free. Her day-to-day reality is defiled by a number that's all about keeping her safe from other prisoners: 22. Yep, 22 hours a day. That's how long she spends locked in a cell in protective isolation. It's for her own safety. Justice Beale even acknowledged that these conditions were onerous, and he added they don't sound very humane, which just adds another layer to this whole sentence. So at the end of all this, you have this incredible act of forgiveness from a survivor on one side and the full final judgment of the law on the other. It really makes you wonder, for a story like this, where does it ever truly end? What does closure even look like?